Here we go. We all good? We're talking about our greatest opponents. Kick things off. Mark, who's your greatest opponent?
Team. Well, I suppose when I was playing, Tyrone was the biggest rivalry. Do you know, they were just the team that we never beat. We had tough games against them in league and championship. We went up there a few times, a few Malays. You had a few of them yourselves up there.
And
it was at the time we didn't like them, they didn't like us.
What year? What years? You obviously had a very long
Yeah, well,
career,
like
so.
you see, I suppose I started 0-1, played in the final against Armagh 0-2, and then like I suppose you were trying to come back in 0-3 and right the wrongs of say losing to Armagh, and then Tyrone just obliterated us in the All-Ireland semi-final, destroyed us. So like we were trying to come back again. We won it in 0-4, and then like we had an opportunity against Tyrone in 0-5, and I suppose we went out that day thinking like that. Okay, this is going to be all-out war, and then Tyrone came out and they played football. They played football, and we and then going down the stretch, I remember Gooch got the ball. We were going for a score, and Peter Canavan comes along and he rugby tackles him to the ground, and like it was crazy. But like the rivalry there, and then we got an opportunity again in 0-8. To this day, I think we picked the wrong team in 0-8. But look,
did you get better than many times during that?
We beat them in 12, but there was the likes of Canavan, Dooher was gone. So like there was a good few of us still around, obviously, but like
it was the tail end of
it was,
what was their great team.
But they had a great team. Like they really had a great team, and like you have to give the likes of Mickey Hart credit. When we had the Twin Towers, when we had Tommy and Kieran Donaghy forward to put the two brothers back, Mark, and then like that was something like that. Like that was just done in training. It was kept quiet. It was a great call by.
Remember the surprise that day? Remember the two of them come back in?
And they were just so adaptable as footballers. Like Justy was fullback all year, but Joe had been playing at 12.
Yeah.
And next thing he's given one of the toughest jobs in the GAA that year, and just goes in and goes.
And the two boys were electric that year. I mean, I'd be marking them in training. Tommy Walsh, he'd win the ball, he'd hold you off. He had such power. And like, now you talk about them being adaptable. We probably weren't adaptable. We probably should have had a plan B. When it wasn't working, maybe go play through the lines. And I think, you look back in that game and there's definitely, you say that's one that got away, definitely, that we should have had a completely different style that day. But it was working all year.
Sean Kavanagh wins Player of the Year that year.
Yeah.
He was exceptional. He scored 5 points from play.
Play in the final, yeah.
What was that expected? Who was there? Someone detailed to mark him. He was obviously the standout player for Tyrone, and they actually bet us. It was my first year with Dublin. They hammered us in the quarter-final, 2008, and you could see Sean Kavanagh was probably taking the lead from the earlier team with Canavan, Owen Mulligan, Dewar, and these guys. Dewar was obviously still there in 08. But what was the plan for Kavanagh? He became the leader. And he wins them the game nearly, not on his own, but he played a massive part in it.
It was a funny one because I keep saying that I just think we picked the wrong team that day. Like say coming up to the final, you had Tommy Griffin who was playing full back. He wasn't playing. I can't to this day understand why Tommy Griffin wasn't playing. I mean, he would have been perfect, I think. I would have even have loved to be on Kavanagh because I was on Stephen O'Neill, who had just come back.
Yeah.
Do you remember he was gone
off the panel altogether?
Yeah, he was gone off the panel, and I felt Stephen. We all know how good a footballer Stephen was. He was incredible, but I think when he came back, that sharpness wasn't there, and I just felt that it was just one of those days where I was just doing my job, but I felt I could have done more in that. I could have been more involved in the game, and it was just. All I was doing was nullifying the threat of Stephen O'Neill. I felt I could have been more involved in the play. I felt that our team, I just think the team was wrong. And I just think that we got it wrong on the day. And
if you look back now, did you overthink your games with Tyrone because you were maybe that obsessed to turn the tables on them? Or sometimes that's what I felt from the outside in, that you just tried too hard to do it your way against them instead of maybe mixing and matching a style of play.
Yeah, I don't know. When you're in the moment, you're just you think you have the right tools to do the job. But I remember coming down the stretch of that game, and Dara, who was flying, like he was throughout the game. I think in the 0-5 final against Tyrone, he kicked 3 points. 0-8, he was flying, lording it around the middle. But then going down the stretch of the game, he was being pulled left, right. I remember towards the end of the game, he was flat out after, I don't know, was it Colm Cavan or somebody? Dara was 34 at that stage. Yeah. There should have been somebody else detailed to do that job, to go after him. And of course then, just after half time, we gave away that silly goal.
Tommy Williams' goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, like that was a terrible goal to give away. And that kind of, that turned the tide towards Tyrone.
That was one thing, and I knew personally about it, that Tyrone were brilliant at in 05, was Kavanagh made his bursting runs through the middle of the defence, but he would come over and stand in the number 12 position, and then Enda McGinley would go to the middle of the field, and he'd give Kavanagh that 2 or 3 minutes to get his breath back, build up the energy levels, and then to just start to rotate after the next attack. So small stuff like that there.
That was the key thing with Tyrone, and even you can still see it in their modern teams. They have what I call transition players. They've players kind of their middle 8 can all play in every position. They're equally as adept at playing kind of in their half back line, nearly in the full back line. They can play, we're talking about the brothers, the McMahons, they're playing half forward, they can drop back. And it's quite difficult to plan who are you going to pick up, because the guys can literally play in 6 or 7 different positions. And that's the credit, I suppose, to Mickey Hart in terms of understanding the tools he had at his disposal, and where you have someone like Kavanagh, who for that period, say in 08, probably was the top player in the country, and just how do we get the absolute maximum out of this? And the players like McGinley, obviously a very intelligent player, they're nearly saying, we'll do everything for you. We'll sacrifice your game. We would have had it with someone like Bernard Brogan, where it's like, you do that and we don't mind doing the rest of the stuff for you. And that was, I thought they were a brilliant team.
But I think all the great teams have that versatility where you can move fellas around. You look at the great Meath team back in the 90s. You had Martin O'Connell. I think he started off in full forward. He came back wing back. He was in the team of the century. You go back to the Kerry team. Ger Power started off at wing back. He won an All-Star there. He won an All-Star at 10. He won an All-Star at 15. You know, you look at, like, say, I've seen Dublin with Kieran Kilkenny playing in the half-back line in certain games. That versatility, do you know, where Graham Geraghty starts at wing back, goes to wing forward, goes to full forward. Do you know, the great teams have that. And if you have players that can play in different positions and adapt so easily, you know, you're going to have success.
Yeah, Rice McMenamin, Philip Jordan, like Davy Hart, like they were the
Gormley.
original. Gormley, like they were the original. Like they wore 3, 4, 5, and 7, but they were popping.
Ricey was something else
everywhere. Like, you know, they were.
I never had the pleasure of marking Ricey. I've just seen him, and a handful, I would imagine.
I remember we had the Paddy's football tournament back in the Gaeltacht, and his team came down, and they just came down for a few pints and a bit of crack, and we were playing them in the competition, and a fight broke out, and himself and Dara were just going at it, like, and I remember
the Gaeltacht competition.
Yeah,
a pub tournament.
And it was only a friendly, like, and then when the game was over, fair play to Ricey, straight over to Dara, like, and shake hands.
You wanted to get a few points later.
Yeah,
you wouldn't let him in.
Greg,
that's the only reason he's in it.
Crack.
In terms of yourself, Paddy, it's probably a fairly obvious one.
For us, yeah, I was probably a little bit later. Obviously, we had big battles with both Donegal and Kerry, but the longevity, I suppose, our rivalry was Mayo. Through that kind of teens, 4 or 5 years in a row, we felt we were the 2 best teams, and just the way it panned out year on year. We played each other in the 12 semi-final, 13 final, 15 semi-final, 2 games, 16 final, 2 games, the 17 final, and then the 19 semi-final. So it was, and similar to what you guys are saying about Tyrone, the reality is, I suppose, the 2 teams didn't get on. That's I think that's fair to say. And the games were, I think the style of play was a big thing, whereas maybe Tyrone at the outset of that Kerry rivalry were, they came up with that an innovative tactic of kind of swarming teams and kind of shutting Kerry down. Ourselves and Mayo kind of just backed ourselves to attack, and we did, and it's kind of rare enough, even rarer now, where for a forward we were going in and we knew it was going to be man on man, and Mayo had the confidence to say, and they're brilliant backs, our backs will mark your forwards, and that was our approach with their forwards as well. So the games for the neutral, by all accounts, seemed to be very interesting and enjoyable, but on the pitch they were hell, really.
Throughout them games, like what What was, you sat down, you planned for Mayo many times, like you've played each other. It feels like an absolute, you could write a book on the whole bit. But what was the main challenge for the Dubs? And the Dubs, when they looked at Mayo, they said, right, we have to get this part right against Mayo.
Staying in control. It was the biggest thing. The Mayo thrived on chaos, attacking from everywhere. They obviously had Keegan, Donny Vaughan, Keith Higgins. We like to play the game on our terms.
What is staying in control then? So is it 2 or 3 scores in a row?
We were big on controlling the game, keeping momentum. Guys like Kieran Kilkenny, Brian Fenton, Paul Flynn, Keane O'Sullivan, these guys. We got dragged into, and this was a mentality thing for us, because we probably didn't really like Mayo and there was that needle between the teams, at times it probably got personal between players, and because it was man to man, it was like, and this is what Mayo kind of did this really well, they dragged you into like a personal battle. So if I'm marking Keith Higgins, I was like, I'm going to have a war with this fella, and I'm not really thinking about, the structure of our team and how do we want to move as a forward unit. And if I get the ball, I'm just going to take this guy on because I want to go buy him. And it's like, that's not really, is that the smartest thing to do? Whereas we would have been a very controlled team in terms of our structure, minding the ball, working scores, and we did it really well against lots of teams. But with Mayo, we always got sucked into this chaotic game, and it didn't suit us.
And is there cues that you would have tried to have from Jim's point of view that you can now tell everyone because he's logged on?
Everyone does this. Everyone that started there.
I'm sick seeing people doing that there now. But that was, you can always picture Fenton was in the middle of the field. And so what is that?
Aaron,
get into your positions.
We probably, maybe by 19, I remember we played 3 or 4 finals at this point. Only then did we played them in the semi-final in 19. To be fair, Mayo probably, that great Mayo team was coming to the end at that point, and we won rather comfortably in that semi-final. But I don't think we ever really got the hang of it.
Was there any period, say, all those games, and in fairness, you were in control, obviously they were very tight games, but was there any period in any of those games where you said, okay, we're in a bit of trouble here now, where you weren't sure of what the outcome would be?
Genuinely, no, I don't think so. I think we'd always, I would say, if you look back at those teams now, and I think the biggest Achilles heel Mayo would have had, they found it harder to get the scores that we could get. We felt, even if we weren't playing well, and we rarely did play well against them, and that's a credit to them and the way they played, we always felt we'd have enough to get scores. The range of, I remember the 17 final, I actually got whipped off at half time, and Dermot Connolly came on for me, and Kevin McMenamin comes on, and Paul Mannion coming on. So we felt we could get scores a bit easier than they were they were very reliant on Cillian O'Connor, Andy Moore, and maybe if Kevin McLaughlin might chip in from the half-forward line or scores from the defenders. And it's very, very difficult.
You had those finishers that could come on and finish the job as well.
I think that was the difference. There were a point or two in the games, but we had a confidence that even when we weren't going well, and this is a credit to kind of Jim and the mentality we did build up, that even though we weren't playing well and we struggled for big portions of those games because of the way Mayo played, we had confidence that we'll be all right here.
But I think that's something that you know yourselves, that's what you would have had in your All-Ireland winning teams, is we'll find a way. Even if things aren't going to plan. Like, I know if we were coming up against Hughes, whenever I was starting out, we had the upper hand in Donegal, but it just changed. The body language changed. Like, say, even if you're talking about the quarter-final here in 14, where Hughes weren't going because you were planning for something further down the lane. But
we'll get to that.
Yeah, you just sort of knew yourselves.
But that's a mindset, Aaron, because I even remember chatting to Mikey Sheehy last year before the All-Ireland final, Kerry Dublin, and I asked him, I said, what way do you think this game is going to go? And he said to me, he says, I think Dublin are going to win. And I said, why do you think that? I said, we're going well enough. What's in you that you think Dublin are going to win? He said, when we were playing in All-Irelands, 84, 85, 86, we were coming towards the end. He says, particularly in 86 against Tyrone. He said, and Tyrone were well ahead in that game. He said, but there was memory bank there that we knew that you could just call on this, that trust each other.
There's a default mode.
Yes, going down the stretch. And he said to me, and I never forget him for it, he says to me, he says, I think Dublin have that, and that's what's going to get them over line against Kerry.
That's what I said to you last summer when the lads came back. I thought Dublin weren't going well, and they'd obviously been relegated the year before, but the influence of Cluxton, McCarthy. McCarthy was obviously there, but Jack McCaffrey, Paul Mannion coming back, and Cluxton
Especially
in particular, it was like, they're not going to lose this. Even if they're not going well, and it is that kind of, and that was a big part of those games against Mayo, was like, we'll find a way to win this game.
On them games against me, it always felt like, looking on from the outside, Dublin, you had steamroll teams, 3-16, 4-15, all of that. Finals, did you approach finals differently insofar as sometimes it felt, or was it a credit to Mayo and a lot of them, they brought the game to chaos, but it felt like sometimes it was like, don't lose.
We never played as well in finals.
Rather than, let's go and steamroll,
2019 Kerry as well.
Yeah, rather than, don't
maybe
lose. Was there a don't lose mentality? That kind of
no, and we kind of struggled to put our finger on it. That a credit to Mayo most certainly, because their style of play. Bear in mind, very few teams played that way against us. Teams would generally drop loads of players back defensively, and we could deal with that all day long. From lessons we would have learned against your team in 14, we had the players to control the game. So Mayo brought a different challenge to it. It's hard to know, because that is the truth. We probably never played our best stuff in finals. I don't think it was nerves, because we were very experienced.
Do you think it was players running from deep, the likes of Keegan, like that what would you call it, that hell for leather game, like the likes of Keegan coming from deep? Not you mentioned, like, say, it wasn't the forwards that were going to kill you. Was it the players, the Donny Vaughns and the Keegans? We saw Keegan getting goals against Dublin.
Yeah, a couple of finals. It was a challenge for us, most certainly, because if you look at, and Donegal, again, a team would have done this to us, we were very honest as forwards. We were made to be. It was basically, if your man goes, there's no passing anyone on. No matter who you are, you work and you track for the team. So Mayo were probably the best team at taking advantage of that. So we would have found, like, I remember myself playing the 16 final, Paddy Durcan was marking me, and he absolutely ate me. He played, I was corner forward, and I used to stand literally in the corner flag for the throw-in, and ref threw the ball in out there on the pitch, and Paddy Durcan just sprinted straight down the sideline, and I was like, what the f*** is going on here?
That's you for the rest
I
of the day.
sprinted, I'd say I covered about 15k running after him, and they were, so one, we were kind of mentally maybe a bit frazzled by the challenge Mayo were bringing, and two, physically, our forwards were dragged all over the pitch.
That pulled you out of your shape then, I suppose. If you're trying to talk about how do you stay in control, there's not much controlling in that, because if you're given a job that you must front up against your own man, and he heads that way, you have to go after him. And so then they're pulling you out of the shape.
That was a big thing. You
looked
at 13 final, Bernard Brogan scores a goal into the hill. We were struggling. Mayo were probably on top of us in that first half. He's the only Dublin forward in the whole half. And that is not how we played. But if Donny Vaughan goes, Colin Boyle, Keith Higgins, and that was all their natural game. Myself, Paul Flynn, Dermo, Alan Brock, we were running after them. We spent half the time in our own half. And that was a brilliant tactic from them. Was it much of a tactic, or was it just the style that those guys play? But I remember playing your teams, and Lacey, Anthony Thompson, these guys, they're running up and going.
Isn't it still a nod, though, to the flexibility? We spoke about two teams for a lot of this, Tyrone, and we spoke now about Dublin Mayo, where you had the flexibility. We spoke about, Joe McMahon being able to go back to the full back line, but yourself, Alan Brogan, Connolly, even though it wasn't your natural jobs, you just got on with it and done it.
You had to do it.
Yeah.
You had to do it. And
the famous meeting that Bernard spoke about, where Gilroy,
it's vintage Gilroy,
and
like beautiful.
That, kind of like Ronaldo-esque, where Ronaldo doesn't have to do the work. Bernard felt he didn't have to do the work. He said it himself in his book.
Oh, did he?
Must have been funny.
It was one of the greatest. Lads were in tears. Like, Pat is. What year was it?
There was actually Bernard.
It was after 09.
We lost.
There's a naivety to Bernard even saying it. I felt a bit uncomfortable reading it in the book. I
didn't know it was
do you not know what's going to come?
Everyone else did. Everyone else did. It was we lost. I know what it was. We lost the Eagles.
Yeah, 09.
100 points.
I think you were playing cornerback.
I was.
Number 4.
Then we
marking the gooch.
Versatility again.
We lost to. That wasn't too versatile. I think we lost to Cork then. In 10 in the semi-final, and we were trying to change a whole attitude and culture and stuff, and before that, like that year in 09, there was no, defenders went back or attacked our forwards, we just stayed there. The lads will deal with that. It was very much We were an immature team. We didn't work hard enough.
I marked Bernard in a league game. I think it was in 08. It was in Crossmaglen.
He was in the half forward line that time.
He was in the half forward line, and
I came on marking Stephen
No,
McConnell that day.
I get a world of football, but I'd say he ended up with 1-3, but
Yeah.
I'd say he only shot 3 times. Like, but
a great
honest to
kicker.
God, at no stage did he even attempt to run after you. Like, if I was running, he'd walk the opposite direction. He didn't care. Like, he just let you go. But
That was the approach of not just Burno, like all of our forwards
In general.
And Pat was an amazing figure in that Dublin success over the last decade. He kind of changed the culture and mentality around it, but it was around, I don't care about, we don't want individuals. You have to start playing as a team, and he would have spoken about it a bit more forcefully than that. But we had a bad defeat again, and the penny just wasn't dropping. And Burno was Player of the Year.
Player of the Year in 10,
And they only got the
Unbelievable.
semi-final.
Amazing.
So an incredible player. And on one side, you can kind of see where Burno's coming from. So we have a kind of clear the air meeting after a bad defeat, and Pat's kind of teeing lads up. It wasn't just Burno; he kind of has a cut off a few lads, and he goes to Burno. He goes, "Burno, how many tackles you get the other day?" And Burno's kind of like pretending to think. 0 is the answer to it. And he's like, oh, and he's pausing, and you can even at that point,
ballpark. Ballpark.
we're kind of sniggering, and Burno knows he's under the pump here, and he's like, maybe 2, and Pat's like 2, okay, and then he goes to Niall Corkery was a guy from Kilmacud Crows. He was the only year he played in 2010. He was wing forward, real workhorse. And he goes, Niall, mate, you get Corkery got about 15 tackles. He goes, 15, okay, very good. Burno, why do you think it's all right for you to get 2 tackles and questionable if you got 2 and Niall gets 15, and Burno kind of pauses again, and I'm going, don't say it, Burno. I'd go out to training with him, like we'd drive out and he'd be giving it, why the f*** am I going back, blah, blah, blah. And he's thinking about it, and he goes, right, I'm going to go for this. And he goes, well, listen, Pat, I actually think, this was the phrase, keep fresh was the phrase. So he's like, he launches into this. He's like, well, if
You're starting to slide down in the seat.
No, we're not starting to lean forward, because we can just see
the popcorn.
You can see Pat kind of, the chest is coming out. And Burno's gone for it, to be fair to him. And he's like, listen, I think if I stay closer to goal, that's our best chance of winning the games. I need to be fresh. I need to keep fresh. For when the ball comes in, I'll get our scores. I don't think it's the best use of me running back tackling. And Pat is like, oh, okay, yeah. And he's kind of nodding away, Pat. And he goes, and who should do the tackling then? And Burno's kind of like, thinks he's in here. He's like, oh, he's listening to me. And now we're starting to slide down. And we're, well, if I stay in, maybe one of the corner forwards will drop out, or maybe the half forwards can suck in if I'm passing my man on. I said, pass your man on, yeah. And there's a pause, and he's kind of waiting for Pat's response. And I mean, Pat nearly puts his hand through this table and absolutely explodes. And we were kind of laughing at the start, but I'd say Pat was delighted with the answer, because it was, here was our best player, and he absolutely went to town. And he's like, that is the problem with this whole thing. No player is better than any other player. Everyone has their own jobs to do, but we don't get anywhere. And he haven't got anywhere. And he had a right cut off a lot of players. It wasn't just Burno, but because he was the figurehead at that time in the team. And it was like, that's not happening ever again.
But in fairness to Burno, he did change his style.
And that's credit.
Oh, he did,
it's a brilliant story from him, and that was the evolution. That team and Dublin at that point were not going to win an All-Ireland.
But
no chance.
by him doing what he did, it was the catalyst for everything else. Then, you know, that it was a laying in the sand moment for you.
Oh, yeah, like Pat and Burno had a great relationship, and Pat had a great relationship with lots of the players, but he had a very forceful style. But it was exactly what was needed at that time. Yeah. That was a team that had talent, and I'm sure, you know, Tyrone team are playing the guys, Mark, at the time. There wouldn't have been much fear of that Dublin team. Like 09, we went in, the classic example, we thought we were going to win that game in 09 because we'd won a Leinster championship. And Kerry, this brilliant team with all the players who'd won All-Ireland, had struggled against qualifier games against Antrim or Longford. When in reality, they're just teeing themselves up for the biggest challenges. But our mentality, we were naive.
Yeah.
We weren't street smart as a team.
It's funny that you say that, because we played We played Dublin in 0-4. We beat Dublin, beat him in 0-7 semi-final. We were playing very poor in 0-9, very poor. Went the back door. Sligo could have beaten us for the league in our home patch, and I think they had a penalty that David Kelly saved. And then we played. I think we played Antrim, and we were in the bus coming home from that game, and it was on Radio 1. The draw was on, and we got Dublin, and the whole bus lifted. Because like you said, we just felt we were going to beat Dublin. No different to afterwards that she could beat us, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at that time we felt we could beat Dublin, and that's what happened. But like
But we didn't fathom that, Mark.
Yeah.
We were like, oh, brilliant. Yeah, we're flying it. We bet till there in the Leinster final.
And it was like that. It was like that flying it. It was like the big scores. But if you brought that, maybe that Dublin team,
there was just
down straight.
razzmatazz to the whole hill that she probably,
that,
played to at the time. Which afterwards you realised,
You look how the first final was won. The 11 final, it was won by. It was a tough, gritty, hard game. Do you know what I mean? By a point. Whereas before it was either Dublin was going to win the game by 20 points.
Yeah, I remember coming out with a ball that day in the 11 final, and Kevin Nolan. I'd say he got man of the match that day.
He did, yeah.
But I remember coming out with the ball and just meeting this block of a man and having to turn back and give the ball back because, like that's what Gilroy had instilled into this
Hardness.
team. This
Steel.
This bit of hard work. And like that was throughout the whole team. And that's what actually stood she afterwards going down through the years.
That's why you can't. Having great skill and great technical players is obviously massively important, and it will get you to a point. You cannot win the biggest games. You cannot do it. You've seen it. You've all won All-Irelands. You need to be hardy bastards. That is the reality of it. It's non-negotiable. It's not a secret.
Yeah.
People don't like doing it because it's hard. It is hard to do.
It sounds like a simplistic thing to say, but it's so important. But for yourself, if you were talking about your toughest team that you ever come up against or the biggest obstacle, who was it, or what did you learn?
We were probably slightly different. We're speaking to Kerry's and Dublin's here, where you were featuring at, the All-Ireland semi, the All-Ireland final. Like, let's face it, we were featuring at Ulster finals at a push, the odd All-Ireland quarter-final. Things had to change for us for so long. We were in Ulster and we were just the whipping boys of it. You would get to a final against Armagh out here, the big Ulster finals down the road.
The time when you used to have the two bags, the going-out bag after the game.
And the nice fancy shirt underneath people underneath the towel. Just put it on the top.
You must have good crack as well.
Kevin Cassidy.
A very odd time the shirt would come out and go hang up in the hanger, that kind of way. But
we had something similar as well.
But yeah, for us the challenge was Ulster. It was like, how do we close the gap between Armagh and Tyrone? They were two of the big ones. Like
you came in 07, didn't you play 07,
yeah.
the minor game, and then Donegal beat us with a goal the last minute.
That's right.
Just straight after.
Yeah, after the National League, that one. Won the National League, but I just felt Ulster was still the one. We were just getting weapons by Armagh and Tyrone constantly. Jim McGuinness came in, and I would say for the whole year we just spoke about Tyrone, how we were going to beat Tyrone.
When Jim came in.
When Jim came in, that was it. It was just Tyrone.
Jim's first year, 10 was it?
Minor in 2007.
First senior.
And then you came straight into the seniors in 8.
I played latter part of 7 too. I played the
senior when you were a minor.
Yeah.
Jesus.
You played the qualifiers, wasn't it?
Qualifiers in 7. Yeah. Funny story. I made the debut down in Leitrim. I'll never forget it. Didn't touch leather for 20 minutes of the game. The first game. Brian Roper, who was the
Mark
forward at the time. He was a water boy for us. He literally played FIFA with me, telling me where to run, where to go, but didn't touch leather. Second game against Westmeath, feeling the way into it. Got a penalty after about 10 minutes. Deveni had the ball.
Give me that.
Gives the ball to Colin. Colin gives the ball to me. I'm like, dude, I'm not cut out for this. Mustard. Big freaking...
Parenka?
No, mustard. Terrible.
Put the laces through it, these are what you do.
Laces to the left, horrible. Halfway up the keeper. Nice height.
We played G in a league down in Tralee years ago, and I was having a good game, and I'd say after around 50 minutes, Roper comes on, and he kicks 3 points off me in around 20 minutes. And I going off the field, what just happened there? Like, I mean, he was a class act.
Yeah, Roper's a good one. We wing forward. He was tough as nails now. Good footballer into the
I
bargain
get him
too.
my first few years.
Did you?
Then 05, it was Roper. We played in a quarter final in Clonus, and then went to a replay, and I had him. He wasn't that big, but Jesus, he was solid. Like there was no, there was no movement.
Full of energy.
But listen, going back to it, to us, it was just there was an obsession with the Ulster teams, and that was one that we had to get over. And there's always probably with all the teams, maybe you can see it. There's this. You spoke about a line in the line in the sand. There's one victory,
a moment,
moment that changes, and for us it was 2011 against Tyrone, Ulster semi-final.
Brick Malloy gets the.
He gets
the
eventual goal, but again playing poorly. Like we weren't playing great, but we were tackling, we were harassing, we were harrying. First half we didn't play great. We were going in behind, and eventually we got the couple of goals in the second half to kind of take us over the line. So that gave us then right. Maybe we belong here.
Isn't that the point of any team on a journey? There needs to be a validation moment.
Yeah.
And you guys, your training regime, we had it. Geez, common team here against Tyrone in 2010 in a quarter final out here. It was the first big win we'd got in a championship match, and it was Pat's second year, obviously after the quarter final defeat. And we weren't great, but we won the game. But we were training at 6 o'clock in the morning, going to work, coming back training in the evening. There was just we were doing crazy stuff, and that has a shelf life.
Yeah.
And you'll do it.
You need the results.
But you need something to show for it. You need something tangible, and there's a pressure on it. And if we lose that game, or if you do all of that stuff with Jim the year later in 2011, and Tyrone beat you by 5 or 6 points, then you're kind of questioning, going, "What is this working?"
Yeah, isn't there
it's
such
magic.
fine lanes? It's such fine lanes.
But when you win, you win it,
It all makes sense.
you've drank the Kool-Aid. You will. It's
all
like,
makes sense,
I'll do this.
And it's not even that. Let's double
Belief.
down. Let's double down.
Do more.
Let's do more.
That's when
do more.
other teams do it then, because like say Donegal did this year, and they won the All Ireland. Geez, we have to do this, or Dublin did this.
But they will copy you, but they don't have the confidence that they have. So they've gone another step again because they have the genuine confidence. We've done it. We've been in these tough situations. And then I felt you ended up playing better football. Then by 14,
for those 2 to 3 years, it felt like I always kind of say it. It felt like it felt like it. It probably wasn't the way, but it felt physically we got fitter and stronger than any team we played against. That's just the way it felt. Do you know what I mean? And then it felt like all the teams spent their energy trying to get fitter and stronger. And then tactically, in the next year, we felt better than anybody. And then they all started to try and catch up tactically for a year or two. Now it all did eventually catch up then, and the Dublin team then eventually gets fitter, stronger, tactically better, and skillfully better. But Ulster in general, Aaron, we're in the periphery of it up in Donegal, getting tons of beatings by the northern teams, I suppose, as such, but you're within it. Like, was the rivalry with yourselves too? I'm sure it was Tyrone.
It was. There's a common theme to it. It was Armagh, Tyrone.
Should have got a Tyrone fella on. Someone ring Peter Canavan there.
I came in. I was in the panel 04, but 05 was the first year I broke through, and then unfortunately that was probably as good as it got in terms of getting even to an All-Ireland semi-final. But that year, obviously, we had played them in the Ulster final here. Went to a replay, and then we ended up in the All-Ireland semi-final against them. And things get that big. Like, we played the McKenna Cup the next year, and there's 20,000 at a McKenna Cup game in January in Casement Park. I remember we got stuck in traffic jams going into Casement Park, and your pre-season competitions, there's a few people scattered everywhere.
Yeah.
It was full, like it was championship day in the middle of the summer. So that's the rivalry that had built. So if you remember, like, we had won in 02, and they were league champions, and Armagh had beaten them after a replay, and they sort of seen Armagh winning, and you've read Canavan and everyone saying, like, that gave them the confidence to know they weren't far away. They then beat us in the final in 03, and he said, then I came into it, but the 05 year, or say that 05 semi-final in particular, like,
incredible game.
I can remember plenty about different things that happened through the years, but I can nearly remember everything that happened that day, because again, as an adult now, or someone who stepped back out of it,
More mature
the level of hatred the level
That's
of
the-
anxiety.
That's the word I was going to just use there. Was there a was there a hit through the Mayo? Was there a hit
Oh,
through
there
the
was a-
Tyrone?
Oh, yeah.
Was there a hit through the-
Absolutely, yeah.
There was a hatred.
Absolutely.
You didn't want to talk to them in.
Yeah.
See, in this setting here, it was so uncomfortable to be in, and like you could sit and talk away to someone from Dublin or Cork or Kerry or wherever, but whenever you met someone, do you know, you go to a big game, you always see a player. If you met someone from Tyrone, it was just awkward.
The Ireland teams and the Ulster, they were funny scenarios, like, you know, in terms of they give you a realisation that geez, everybody's fairly similar here, you know, without the
They're
pitch.
grand.
You think
Normal,
that,
like,
well,
yeah, normal
you
people,
think that
of course,
boy's a
yeah,
bit of
Tomas,
a
you say
bit of a
that.
or that boy's a bit of
Yeah,
a
yeah.
or whatever, but then suddenly you share a dinner table with them or a training session or an evening with them. You're like, Jesus, maybe they're not, but
Yeah.
still guarded enough to
Oh,
know.
yeah.
You know,
Remember, like, you guys, along with Kerry at that time, you were the best teams. Like Armagh should have won more than one.
Definitely,
With that group.
definitely.
Well, we
Kerry are always there, but
Yeah.
you and Tyrone, and it was like
Armagh were there
us
from
with Mayo.
'99, and
Yeah.
it was always the
Back-to-back
eventual
Ulsters,
champions that beat
Beat you, yeah.
Well,
Armagh.
99 Meath beat us, won the All Ireland. 2000
Kerry.
yourselves
And
after
that game,
replay.
the-
01
Galway.
was Galway.
Qualifiers.
02 we won it.
Yeah.
And then 03 we lost to Tyrone. So that was 5.
Jeez, the 03 lads, the block down by Gormley.
Ah,
Oh my
it's
God,
beautiful.
Like,
Stevie McDonald, wasn't it?
It
Yeah.
was heroic stuff, but I suppose for me, that,
Are you all right, Aaron?
I'm only trying to sort of convey with this, that 05 game, like, I can remember the parade and everything, like, to see the people in the stands that day.
Full
like,
house.
It was just,
Yeah.
it was crazy. For some reason, I don't know, we paraded the opposite way around, and growing people where everyone was in their seats, and you could feel on the field yourself, this is a different level. And unfortunately for myself, I'd say you have all experienced an All-Ireland final day. It was something that actually never replicated again. Just the buzz, everything that come with that day, the anxiety that everybody had, even in the change rooms. You couldn't, like, I can remember getting the bus in from Port Marnock Hotel, and Dad had actually done a thing where Jimard Marsden had just retired, but he'd done a voiceover of Marsden talking. So we were just coming in the bus, and then I can't remember whether it was on video or it was
That's emotional now.
it was talking. And next thing Marsden starts talking, and you were sort of sitting listening, and you're in a guard escort, and you know the excitement or the buzz that you have with that there. And Marsden starts talking about the big day and how much it means to everyone, and he starts saying, and
Al
McGrain,
Pacino, and I give
yeah,
him some.
well, that was already used up, so he had to go some, but he was talking, McGrain always
This is
sat,
quarterfinal they used that.
yeah, McGrain always sat down the back seat, and he had a fruit pastilles, and he'd be handing them around, and he started saying stuff like this, and I can just remember the hair was standing on the back of my neck. You couldn't wait to get in. You were nervous, you were anxious, but for me, that's the bit I always loved about the privilege of playing at the top level for club or county. Was I loved coming up against the best players, the best teams, because I felt that that's what it's all about. That's what the hard work's for.
As long as you won.
As long as you win.